All right, we are live. It has been a while since I have done a live show of the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. Everyone, welcome to episode 65 today. This is incredible. This is November the 5th, 2021. And I'm so excited to be chatting with our guest today. Before we get started, the news that I have is that this program, the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break, now has an official website. It is called www.thegretchafternooндrumbreak.com and was built by Mr. Carlos Martinez. And it includes a one-stop place to watch your favorite Gretsch artist interviews that have been on the show. So www.thegretchafternooндrumbreak.com, and they are the Gretsch artist interviews on my show are linked right to the Gretsch artists on the GretschDrums.com page. And so many thanks to Carlos for building the website, doing such a great job on that. And as always, thanks so much to my friend Nicholas Lucero for all of the support and for making this happen. So today, I'm so excited to introduce to you an amazing drummer. You will know some of the artists that he has played with. He has such an incredible story, and I'm so eager to share this with you all the way from California here. I'm going to let him tell you exactly where he's from. We have Mr. Denny Weston Jr.
Hey, Neil.
Good. How are you?
I'm well.
Good. What is on that hat? I can't quite see that.
This is a hat, Danger Bird. Danger Bird is a record label in Los Angeles that I was a part of, both as an artist and management team for a long time. Yeah.
Wow, so, fantastic. Yeah, it's a cool design.
I dig the hat. Yeah, the design's cool, right?
Yeah.
I dig the hat.
Yeah, very cool. Well, welcome to episode 65. So nice to have you on the program. As I was telling you off screen, I will often to get some new guests on the program to get things rolling. I will have a look at the Gretsch Drums artist roster and read the bios and look at what these folks have done. And I'm telling you, it's amazing seeing the variety of things that you've done and your experience. And I'm so glad that we were able to connect and be here today. So, man, oh man, so what have you been doing? As I was telling you before, that things are just kind of have opened up here in Canada. Theaters are just opening. Live playing's been happening for just a couple of months. But what have you been doing? What happened during the pandemic of March 2020 to today?
The streets emptied for a while in Los Angeles. It was like, it was wild. It was, I don't know, Hollywood movie like or something, empty streets. But mainly doing remote sessions. And
wow.
Yeah. So that's how I stay busy as far as work goes. Because, everything shut down for everybody. Anybody in the music business, March, whatever that was, 2020.
Yeah.
Gone in like an instant. So, musicians are resourceful people and figure it out, and
yeah.
And I was doing that anyway. The remote sessions I was doing anyway, and sort of have had recording studios through the years to do home sessions. So I just tried to do as much of that as possible.
So you had a jump start, and so many musicians that I know that had home studios, they were thinking, before the pandemic, they were like, why did I even bother doing this? Because I'm not making any money. Nobody has any money. Nobody's calling me for projects. And all of a sudden it's like, can you? And you guys had the jump start. So how long have you been into the recording thing? And what kind of setup do you have? You have a separate room. You have the basement. What's your setup like?
So, well, I've been recording things ever since I was in Baltimore, where I grew up.
Wow.
So from 4-tracks, actually before 4-tracks, the boombox thing.
Come on.
I mean, drums sound great on a boombox, right? But record, go to the other tape, you know what I mean? Record over that, you know, did all that kind of stuff. And then went to 4 tracks and then went, you know, the whole thing. So right now I have what a lot of people have, which is the universal audio interfaces. And, you know, I have a room with mics and, yeah. And it's, I have I have a basement, but then I don't put the drums in, but I put mics in, which is kind of cool. So, you know, or basement. It's not really a basement East Coast wise, but it's like a cellar, but it's got a cool sound, you know. Anyway, it's great. It's great.
And do you run Pro Tools or what do you use?
I'm about 95% on Ableton.
Okay.
And then, but I run Pro Tools all the time. The 5% might be for the remote sessions. So, because most people work in Pro Tools, so they'll send me, they might send me a session, or I'll send them a whole session back. So, yeah, I love them both, but I really love it. You know, I'm doing music writing and things like that at home. I kind of vibe with Ableton. It's been my favorite. So, but you know, if I want to vibe with other people, you know, I get the Pro Tools going. So for the remote sessions.
So these remote sessions, are you playing drums on these? Are you recording? Where did you get your clientele? This is the other thing too, is us people that didn't have any recording setups. It's like, okay, now we can kind of record something. Who's going to ask us to do it? So how did that work for you?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, some of it is distance, right? Some of it is budget related. Like, oh, well, I have X amount of dollars. Well, if, you know, I'm not going to drive to San Diego for X amount of dollars. It wouldn't necessarily make sense, but I could do this way, you know, and so this makes it work for everybody. And it's something that I like to do. So part of the deal is I didn't just get the system for remote sessions. I also like to record anyway, right? So it's just, so, you know, for me, it's more like, well, what do you need? Okay, you need drums and you're there, and this is great. I'm set up already. My drums stay set up and I'm ready to go. We can swap little things, you know, dial in the sound as you like, but then go. And then, you know, so I can work with more budgets that way, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And that's a long time since, you know, the Baltimore days, it sounds like, especially the 4-track. I remember horsing around with a 4-track back in like 1989, 1990, recording myself along to the Dave Weckl play along package, you know, trying to play. And those tunes were great because the production sounded awesome. And it was fun to get into the recording, but I never got into the digital recording until last year. I'm so glad that I did. And I'd love to pick people's brains that have been doing it for a long time. And I have one friend in particular who's a great engineer, musician, and I'll, you know, send him a question that I could find online, but it would take me forever. And he'll just say, no, do this. And it's wonderful. So it's nice to have somebody that knows what they're doing, because I certainly did not.
Well, everybody needs that person. We all do. So I don't think all of us are open to any questions that friends have or whatever, because we're like, I was there. So it's always, you know, you always, you know, need that guy, that girl, that guy to help you at the beginning. So, you know, any question you have, ring me up, man.
Hey, I'm telling you, that's cool. Nice to hear that. Let's go back to the beginning for you. So you grew up in Baltimore. So let's go back to the early days. In Baltimore, did you start playing music there? The family background? Fill us in. This is going to be an awesome story.
I got a Mickey Mouse drum set when I was 5 or 6 or something like that. Right?
No.
And my mom just reminded me that it was my grandmother who got it for me.
Oh,
but I beat the hell out of it in like a day. So I think they thought, okay, well, that's cool, man. Maybe, we'll get him a drum set. And they did so my birthday's in June. That Christmas, I got a drum kit. So I was,
yes.
very fortunate. Yeah. And my dad played. And so I was just around him, seeing what he was doing. And he played bass.
Okay. Wow. That's perfect to learn with a bass from a bass player how to play
Yeah.
music with people. That's cool. So how old were you when you got the Mickey Mouse drum kit, and how old were you when you started really noticing music and playing and kind of wanting to be with your dad? Big influence on you from the sounds of it, right? Your dad?
Yeah, huge. Yeah, huge influence. And my, there was he was like I don't know. He was kind of like the Yoda guru in the corner. Like he's not giving me exact, double stroke lessons or check this out, but he would just go, oh yeah, maybe, oh, that's cool. Check this out, or yeah, cool. Have you listened to this? Kind of thing. That was sort of the way and talking rhythm. That's another thing I thought about not too long ago. He had a way of it's kind of embarrassing when you're a kid or when you haven't done it, but stuff that we kind of do as you play more. But the those sounds, like you mouth the sound that you want to
Yeah.
hear.
Yeah.
My dad was huge with that. But I was young. I was 5 or 6 years old. When it started. And so I don't know exactly when when it started to click, but somewhere in there, I was playing all through the years. Up
Wow.
until I got with friends and bands and things.
So so had you? I guess you played with your father. Did you guys jam at home? Did you do gigs together?
I never did a gig together. Damn. Uh, I
And
never
what?
thought I never thought about that till right now. But we played together. We
Yeah.
did play together, and fond moments, very fond moments. I was wanting to impress your dad, of course. But I can remember, he would sit down, not super regularly, but he would like I said, throw some stuff at me, and then maybe in a month he would sit down and play with me and go, like, oh yeah, well that's what this would feel like. So it was cool.
That's what kind of music was he playing?
Um, he was playing with various people in the Baltimore area. And he had a stint with Dion from Dion and the Belmonts.
Wow, cool.
It was after the Belmonts, but it was Dion, and yeah, and he played with great drummers, and so I was lucky to learn osmosis, I guess is the word, with the drummers that he played with.
I can't recommend that enough to young drummers, especially my own students here. And since I live in a relatively small city, maybe 35,000, and not a lot of places necessarily that they can go see live music year round because it's pretty cold here now. But I always say, man, you need to go and watch live music. It's really different than here. If you have a friend that wants to jam with you, Jim Blackley, whom I studied with back a number of years ago, said, throw the books in the garbage and just go play. And and I suggested they go see, because man, it was very impactful for me, and I'm sure it was. Do you remember any of the drummers that you saw?
Well, my dad took me to my first concert. Check this out. It was Van Halen. So how groovy is that, man?
Oh man.
That's the kind of dad he was, right? And my mom got us the tickets somehow. I think it was through she worked for the Baltimore Orioles, and so my mom and dad were both super supportive. They're getting
Woo.
me Van Halen tickets, and then he took me to Queen. So those are like my first two concerts. It was bananas. So yeah.
Wow.
But
So late
but I
70s?
yeah 80. 80. The I guess it'll the Women and Children First tour was that Van Halen tour.
That must have been unbelievable to see that.
It was a little frightening, to be honest, because I was pretty young, but I loved but I was into Van Halen, and it's still into Van Halen.
That's incredible.
So yeah, man, and we were sixth row for the Van Halen show, so it was like, but amazing, and I'm still a huge Alex Van Halen fan. I'd love to meet him someday.
Yeah, I wish he played Gretsch drums, but his sound is that Ludwig drums, man, and nobody sounds like him or plays like him. He's a
I agree.
great rock drummer, man. Oh,
yeah, I think I mean, if you were to, I would, I guess he's not underrated at all, but he's
not
like,
he's not name checked like he was.
Right. So maybe he is under. I consider him an amazing drummer. So yeah.
Absolutely. Wow. And how old were you in 1980? Because you were saying it that scared you. That kind of, what was it that scared you? Were you like under 10, or were you around 10 years old?
Yeah, I was 12. It's just that age, and it's like the power of.
Yeah, it's scary.
Yeah, like I think the venue was like 10,000 people or whatever, right? So, and you're feeling the power of the PA and the energy of Dave and Eddie and Michael. I mean, it was, and they're legit, man. I mean, I go back. There's actually a YouTube video. I mean, there's tons of videos of them at that time, but there's actually a YouTube video of that show.
No way.
So it's cool, and they're just incredible. Yeah. So one of the first. I mean, I don't know. I've loved a lot of different kinds of music, but they were a big influence on me. I love Van Halen. When Van Halen 1 came out, I was really young, obviously, and it was bananas to me. I don't know, anyway, we don't talk about Van Halen anymore, but yeah.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So did you do formal lessons? Did you have any formal instruction? Was it drums first? Did you play guitar? Did you play another instrument? What happened in your musical life?
I was, I'm basically self-taught. I just picked it up and watched guys that my dad was playing with and watched, or listened to records. That was the main thing, playing the records. And then I ended up studying with a guy for a bit, two guys in Baltimore. One for a little longer. He played with my dad. His name was Buzzy London, just insane drummer. And it just, if any people are watching from Baltimore, they know Buzzy's just incredible.
Really?
Yeah. And
I'm gonna write that down.
And we'll get back to Buzzy actually, because
okay,
he was my introduction to Gretsch.
Okay.
But so not only was I watching him and listening to him, my dad got to a point where he was doing sound as well, and so he would have tapes of Buzzy, and I would listen like constantly to what he was doing. I loved it. I loved the way Buzzy played. And then he was the first person to show, to introduce reading a little bit. And then I studied with a guy named Granger, who I don't know if you know Greg.
I don't.
Greg and his brother are fairly well known in Baltimore. His brother played with Schofield and
Gary Granger?
That's right. So his brother Greg was a drummer, and I went with him, but not a ton, but a little bit. And so I didn't even study till I came to LA, and then So besides those, encounters, Buzzy and Greg.
That's incredible. We have some comments on here. Jennifer Fleming said, "Demand." We have our good friend Adrian, all the way from Puerto Rico. Hello, Neil and Denny. Be well. And another comment from BJW. He played in a club on his 16th birthday with his dad's band.
That's right. That's right.
And last comment is from JR Black saying, "Denny, what's the scoop with the 16th birthday?"
So, sorry, man. This headphone is cutting out a little bit, so I'll put both of them in. Can you hear me? All right.
I hear you great. Yep.
Yes. I don't know, man. That 16th birthday was such a gift. So Buzzy was the drummer. I don't know whose plan it was, but man, I haven't talked about this in a while. But my dad had me come in and play 16th birthday. It was a club, and I'd known all the tunes because like I said, I listened to what Buzzy was doing, and I did everything I could to mimic it anyway. So I basically just became Buzzy for a set. So it was fun, and it was a whole set. It was crazy. Very scared,
Sure.
going up on stage because these were all pro dudes, to me, and great players and the whole thing. So I loved it, and it was my 16th birthday, and I have a video of it that I have to get transferred.
Oh man!
And the guy who videoed it was another drummer that my dad played with, named Danny Saponaro, and just fantastic, man.
Wow, what kind of music was this?
It was the top 40 of the day, stuff like I don't really remember the exact songs, but like what did they do? The Gap, the Earth, Wind and Fire, LTD.
Oh, cool.
Like usually like a little groovy, but then they would do like Haircut 100 tunes, Thomas Dolby.
Wow.
Stones. I mean, it was covers, but always choice and always played like in a way that I loved, and inspirational. So yeah,
that's amazing. So what's the connection with Buzzy and Gretsch drums? Since this is the Gretsch afternoon drum break, let's dive in. And so what was that all about? And yeah, I want to hear some details.
I went into to Buzz's house. I don't know if this was the first time or not, but early on, it may have been the first time, but he had a stereo in the living room and he was playing Take 5 and, Morello. And it was the first time I had heard that, Dave Brubeck, Morello playing. And I just was like,
what is that?
Like it tore me up. It tore me up a little bit. I was like, this is insane. It's insane. And I just listened, and I don't know, we didn't even, I don't remember talking about the Morello thing, the performance and what he was doing, but I can remember that event, and then we went downstairs and he had a basement and he had two Gretsch kits set up, and they both looked exactly the same. They were, the red, I guess, I don't know what that color is called. It was, it was wood grained, the red dye, rosewood maybe. I don't know. One was regular sizes, meaning 22, 12, 16 maybe, I think, floor. And then the other was a 24.
Woo!
And bigger toms.
Wow.
And just sitting on him, and he had them wide open, zero muffling, and it was just like, I mean, I don't know, it was love. I played a kit, that first kit that I got. I played till I was 18 or 19 years old or whatever it was, quite a while. And it was like a, those 70s Japanese kits, and they had a lot of
Yep.
names for them. This was a Mercury kit, and I loved
Yep.
it. Loved it. But this was a whole nother thing. when I played those drums, it was incredible. It was incredible.
What was it about them when you played them? What was it that just reached you?
They sounded, well, first of all, they sounded like what Morello was playing upstairs, right? Yeah. They had a pure tone, warm, but still like had the attack. It was almost like I don't know. It sounded, the stick, when you hit it, it sounded exactly like how you wanted it to sound, or how I wanted it to sound, if that makes any, do you know what I mean? Attack wise, and then tone. So it rang out, but it rang out in a pure way. And I guess part of that is because Buzzy knew how to tune drums and those kind, all those, variables. But yeah, the drums themselves were just incredible.
And did you want a set of Gretsch drums once you played those? I found afterwards, I was like, I don't want to play anything else. I bought other drum sets afterwards.
No,
but I didn't want them.
Man, I didn't. I mean, I didn't realize how special it was to me until later, maybe.
Okay.
But it was definitely special at the time. And he sold those drums at a point when I was really young and had no money. I didn't have a lot of money, but he was selling them for like a bananas deal. And I was just like, oh my God. But the new thing at the time, so I had moved on and went, to Gaddville. I was loving Steve Gadd at that point. And so when I was able to afford a kit, so cut to a few years later after he sold the drums, too late. But I was also going, well, Steve Gadd plays recording custom. So that was my first kit that I bought myself. So I did that.
I had a set too. I was a Weckl nut and bought the same finish, the same sizes, a ton of recording custom, and they're great drums. You go to play them live, and they were so quiet. The toms were so quiet because they were birch, different thing.
So what happened was I got in a car accident. That wasn't my fault. It was another guy's fault. And he hardly did anything to my car. I had a big old boat station wagon and hardly did anything to it. But the insurance company gave me $2,000. Went right to the music store, bought the drum kit with the swear.
No way.
Yeah. But I played the recording custom for years, and a buddy of mine has them now. So
nice. No, they certainly were a popular drum. That was, the sound of the 80s and up until the 90s, man. And of course I love Steve Gadd too, who doesn't, and Steve would sound great on any. There's a clip of him that came out maybe a year or so ago, and he was playing looked like a square badge Gretsch kit. And we're like, people were freaking out going, did he switch? No, it's just, he was doing a session and he still sounded like Steve Gadd.
Yeah, right. I mean? Exactly.
So so what kind of playing were you doing when you got a little bit older? What did you have ambitions to be a professional drummer, to follow that, or did you just kind of fall into it?
Fall into, yeah, I probably fell into it more than I sat down. I'm I don't know, man. I love those stories that we all hear, and maybe this is your thing, I don't know, but that, what they saw Ringo on the Ed Sullivan Show, or they saw X, Y, and Z, usually at 15, 16, 17. Yeah. And so that's what they're going to do. I never had that moment,
You were young. That happened to you
yeah,
when you were a little kid.
I guess. So I just always did it kind of, I guess, thing. But uh but I do get in I do I constantly get inspired by the Ringos and you know constantly, and whoever's new and things that are coming out constantly.
Mhm.
So maybe I'm still trying to be a drummer, have ambitions or whatever, right? So
Oh, you've got to have ambitions and goals. We're not empty vessels. We need to achieve some things. You've got something inside you that you want to do. You want to create. You want to perform. You want to do this, and of course. So what kind of music were you playing as maybe when you're in your early 20s? What kind of stuff were you
mm,
playing? And actually, before I forget, maybe can we start with who are some of your drum heroes? Because I thought of that a second ago and then it left. So who are your drum heroes? And then we can get into what kind of playing were you doing when you're in your early 20s?
so for me, I started with well, I guess um, I like to think of it as, when you're growing up, you have, or I had my mom and dad's music collection around,
Yeah.
right? And my mom loved the Beatles and you know and groovy stuff that was on the radio, Bee Gees,
Yeah.
um, you know, super inspirational. My dad was, you know, my dad was into soul music and everything from funkadelic. Had an affinity for certain jazz, certain R&B, and session guys, right? But I was, as a kid, you want to break out of that. So I had a super Neil Peart phase, man. I was, those albums, 21. Oh, right, Canada.
Oh,
Oh,
huge,
dude,
huge,
forget it.
huge. Yeah, love.
That time period of like moving pictures and permanent waves and 2112, I was really into it.
Yeah,
Then sort of got into the session guys. So it
yeah,
was I was big on Jeff Porcaro and Jim Gordon
yeah.
and Harvey Mason, Bernard
Mm.
Purdy, Gadsden, that whole thing. Um, and maybe yeah, I don't know, man. I think so. My dad loved those kind of records. Like he would. So I spent a lot of time looking at credits on
Yeah,
records
me
and
too. Still.
right, yeah, and well, yeah, if you can find them these days, right? So, but
Right.
yeah, and you kind of get to know, okay, this group of guys, are playing on this, whether it's the Motown session crew or whether it's Roger Hawking and all the
Mhm.
dudes down in Muscle Shoals, or it's the Stax guys, or it's the
Yeah.
Wrecking Crew. That I sort of, I guess there was a familiarity with the players, and they created a certain feel that was that I loved. So basically, any drummer that's in that sort of vein, Steve Gadd, Annie Newmark.
Oh,
I mean, it gets bananas, and then John Bonham and Ringo and Keith Moon and um, Erskine. And I could go on for days, man.
yes,
Um,
yes. Or your list of your top 100 drummers, right? And you could
yeah,
still go on about how each one of them influenced you at a certain time.
yeah,
And I absolutely love that, and love to share that with my students. It's like this drummer, this is a guy named Jeff Porcaro, and that they're looking at me, usually blankly, but then, we'll do another song. They go, "Oh, that's that Jeff Porcaro guy." I go, "No, Porcaro," right? Or, I like to give a little bit of the history of the instrument as well and the players, just so that it's not just notes on a paper
that's
or
cool.
or singing or, playing, a Dua Lipa song. Nothing wrong with that. But I want to go back to Roger Hopkins, man. We did Roger a few weeks ago and student was freaking out how great it was.
Nice. Well, and even if they don't, like when Buzzy had the Brubeck record on and Morello, it's not like all of a sudden I went and I'm playing straight ahead jazz, right? But that sunk in somehow. So just you mentioning it could be, sinking into the brain a little bit. And
right. That's the goal.
Right. And you want guys to play like Hawkins or Jeff Porcaro, right? I mean, we all want to play like, all of us want to play like those guys,
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Or Denny Weston Jr. In fact, listen here. We have a great comment here. Went to school with Denny at the Dick Grove School of Music. Please tell him James Somera Maui says hello. Hi, James. Thanks for tuning in.
James is fantastic. Hey, James. I went to a few times with James in LA to see Vinny play at a tiny bar, and you're sitting 10 feet, and James's comment was, and I won't curse here, but effing Vinny, man, effing Vinny, oh man, effing Vinny, and it's true, man. It was educational, obviously, being that close to Vinny.
Oh, I've only seen him at a clinic. I mean, and you guys were so lucky of the last 40 years to have had Vinny in town. And he used to play a place called the Flying Jib or something like that. From what I've read, and you could see him for like a buck or two, a couple of nights a week. He'd play. This is in probably the early 80s, and apparently he was just blowing. Kind of like that famous baked potato gig that he was on that's all over YouTube and whatnot.
Well, the way I think of those kind of gigs with Vinny is that those kind of gigs, he's not doing a gig, really. Like, they're just, okay, they got some tunes, they're putting it up on the stand and they're going. So it's almost like he is like more in the moment there than anywhere. It's pretty incredible to watch. Like what will come out just, there, in other words, you know what I mean? Like he doesn't know the song. He hasn't had to, rehearse a song or whatever it is. He's just sitting down and it's coming out, and that's his, or I don't know. I'm sort of, I'm guessing, or I'm thinking it like this way, like that's his personality, true, like unadulterated, 100%. And you're just like, whoa, man, not even what he can do, which is obviously quite special, right? And but it's the emotional decisions that he's making.
Yeah. Oh, he's unbelievable. And that video was just unbelievable. And to watch him sit down at a clinic and just play was, and he had the drums set up sideways to the audience. And I was never so inspired after seeing that. Oh man. Yeah.
He's a sweet guy too. I have met him, and I was maybe in LA a year, and we were talking. I met him on the street, and he took my number. He's like, "Hey man, you want to go to a gig, man? I'll call you." And I'm like, "Got it, man." And this is before cell phones, man. So,
wow.
And he did call me, and I couldn't go to the gig. There was something, and it just killed me. I couldn't go, but he actually called. He's like, "Hey, Denny, man, like if you want to go, like it was, I don't know. Maybe that's normal, but I thought it was pretty special."
That's pretty wild, man.
Very sweet.
What? So, how long have you been in LA? How old were you when you moved from Baltimore?
I was 21.
Okay. Wow. So you've been in LA for at least 10 years now?
Yeah. I'm outside of LA now. I'm in the Joshua Tree area in the high desert, about 2 hours outside of LA. And, but I moved to LA in 90.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's incredible. So what was the impetus for moving there? Just because there was bigger pond just more experience. The weather was maybe a little nicer, in January than in Baltimore.
Well, I sort of not to get sort of hairy fairy or whatever, but I always had a thought that I would go to LA.
Cool.
I don't know why that, I I was in Baltimore. I mean, I was a Lakers fan when I was in Baltimore. I don't know. I didn't go there for the Lakers, obviously, but there was also the idea that Jeff Beccaro and John Robinson, all those dudes were in LA playing
Right.
sections and stuff. So, and the other option was for me at the time was New York. And I couldn't wrap my head around how people were moving around
Right.
with their gear.
No.
And that was really the final straw. I was just like, well, yeah.
So what did you go out to Los Angeles with any work prospects, or did you just go?
Well, I went to school that James
Dick
mentioned,
Grove.
Dick Grove School of Music. I went out. I went out to study with Garibaldi was teaching there, and I was like, "Oh, this is dope." I had gotten his book, and I loved his book. I forget what the name of it is now. But
The Future Sounds book. The
yes,
Garibaldi
yes,
book? Yeah.
and he. I just loved it when he counted the exercises off. He'd be like,
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4. Like it was like real precise.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Anyway, I was like, "Oh, I'm going to study with him." You know what I mean? This would be great. I get to LA, and he stopped teaching at Grove that semester. I was like, but it turns out that maybe that was the best thing that happened, because maybe I wouldn't have gone to Grove if Garibaldi wouldn't have been there. But then I got to study with just bananas teachers. Emil Richards, Brian Kilgore, just crazy. Peter Donald, Steve Houghton.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
Just incredible. Dan Greco. I mean, all of these dudes who were playing, John Ferraro. I mean, just really great drummers and great teachers who I wouldn't have thought of studying with them. I remember a lot of classes with Steve Houghton and with Brian Kilgore, and I didn't play much percussion before I went to Grove, and then Brian broke certain things down in a way that was like, to this day, was like very, very key for me. So, and then, and also that got me into teachers, and I'm sure as a teacher you would get, like, teachers are have a specialty, a specialness about them. I really respect the teachers.
It's fun. It's a challenge for sure, and it's a different thing than being a player.
Well, even some of the teachers were playing a lot or not playing, but it's a special. It's its own art that you have to study how to teach and make it. Yeah. I went to Murray Spivak later. I don't know have you heard of Murray?
Really? Come on.
And
wow.
Yeah, great, man.
How long did you do lessons with Murray? That was, for those who don't know, he was a famed hand technique teacher, but also he was a sound effects guy, and he did the sound effects for King Kong back in the day. And he would teach guys like David Garibaldi, all the heavies, and just he really understood motion. Didn't he study with wasn't Gladstone? Might have been Gladstone.
I think it was Gladstone.
It was Gladstone. Yeah, just wow, crazy. How long were you with Murray? That would have been unbelievable.
Yeah, the two guys were Freddie Gruber,
right?
Who, by the way, there are. I don't know how I missed him, but on YouTube there's tons of. What's the guy's name? Like his last name is Fish. he has this YouTube site.
Scott K. Fish.
Yes,
A
yes.
modern drummer, used to be a contributor.
And he's got tons of great Freddie.
Really?
Is like he recorded Freddie in interviews, and I hadn't seen any of these, and it's great. The Freddie was booked up at the time, and those were the two hand guys. Oh, Freddie's booked up, and Murray was like he was booked up too, but had somebody cancel. He's like, well, I'll do it.
Wow.
And he was great. Just I went to him for a while, and he was the kind of teacher that I love. He's kind of hard. Well, you would show up and he'd be like, take me to the bank. Then you go take him to the bank. Then you'd stop at the store. Then you'd, go pay a bill. And then you go back to his house and hang with him for an hour and a half or whatever. And you play, and he wanted you to record it. And I still have the tapes. And
wow.
You can listen to him like, no, that's not, you're doing the, fantastic. I loved it. I took to Murray, man, like, and that style of teaching I love. They're kind of, they can be hard asses, and I like it. I had a piano teacher later in LA. I took lessons, a piano rhythm teacher by a guy named Jamie Font, and he was like, no BS, man. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
I love it.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. That's amazing. How many lessons do you know and how many times did you take Murray to the bank?
Well, every single lesson, it was somewhere. It was, you had to do something, man,
That is hilarious. I'm going to do that at 4:00 with my 4:00 lesson.
Oh, now you're taking lessons from Murray now. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. You got some stuff to do, man. You need, I don't know, man. And I was driving. I lived in the valley then, and so it took me a half an hour or more to get to him. He lived like in the La Brea area. Oh, I don't know if you know where it is, but
no.
He lived about a half an hour away. So I'd already driven a half an hour, and then did the errands, and then did the lesson, and then drove back. So it was like a 4-hour day with Murray, which was amazing. And by the way, just like I learned a lot about at Grove, the personality is part of the deal.
Yeah.
You're taking that in as well. And he was basically a sweetheart, man, and that was, yeah, but yeah.
And the Wackerman brothers studied with Murray as well. And I know Chad had mentioned that he had a course. I think it might have been through Don Lombardi's, can't think of the name there. But he would teach you the Spivak method of hands. And I'm like, man, I love that kind of stuff. I would just eat that up. But that's phenomenal, man. I had no idea. So did you find that things really changed for you once you studied with Murray, and did he have you only play traditional? Probably, correct? Oh no.
You know what he said to me? He's like, your left hand sucks. So you're basically starting over anyway. So maybe you should start match grip, and, kind of thing. But, and I was like, but he gave me the option.
That is awesome. I love how they're just so blunt, right?
Oh yeah, man. Right. Exactly. Well, that's what I mean. And I wasn't like, I was like, yeah, man, I get what you're saying. But, oh my God, I stuck with the traditional. And, I'll say this, one thing that I wish I would have, or not wish how would I put it? He was very economical about the stick height.
Okay.
He wanted you to play, like he was like, why do you need to play the drum any louder than that? Why do you need to, why do you need, why? And of course, I'm playing in a few different things where I'm playing a little more out, a little more, and so I saw things like Freddie or Chapin, and they would be, you know, a
Like
little
like
more.
Buddy.
Yes, yes, right. But Murray was not about that, at least with me. He was
Wow.
like, and I think I've seen a little bit of what Chad has talked about Murray, and I could be wrong about this, but I think he said the same thing. Like
Yeah.
the stick height is like you can get all the power you need from this high, or how, you know, he didn't want, like, he's like, once you go past this, everything starts falling apart. Uh he had a thing about the economical muscular motion and the whole thing, and then the sound of the drum, and it would have really, I don't consider myself like Chad and having mastered the Spivak thing. And we just went through, or are in, an era where quiet playing is of big importance.
Sure.
Like, engineers want you to play really quiet at times, super quiet. And man, if you can have that kind of facility,
Yeah.
at that low height, at that control, and basically play anything, it could have, you know, maybe a few more years of that would have really even done me even better now, kind of thing. You know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
That's fabulous, man. We could talk about Murray, and we could talk about that stuff forever. Maybe in a
Sure.
in a part two, or maybe even at
Sure.
some point. Let's talk about some of the artists you've played with. Of course, I recognized Katie Tunstall. I
Yeah.
recognized that name, and like the music of hers. How did that come about for you?
That came about through her producer, and um, her manager managed the producer, and he used to be my manager when he was at Danger Bird.
Ah, okay. Wow.
So, right.
Yeah.
So they were doing a record, and called me to do the record. And then we got along, and she asked me to do a tour with her. And then
Wow.
it went on, and we did another record and another tour, which is very nice. And she's a sweetheart.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
When did you start playing with her? How long ago was that?
Good question, man. I don't remember the year. It's all blurring together. Maybe 2014, 15, something like
Right.
that.
Right.
In there, that ish. Maybe the record was recorded in 2014
Hmm.
and then came out. I don't know, something like that in there. It's
Mhm.
blurry. It's blurry.
Yeah, I can imagine, unless you keep that kind of stuff in the forefront of your mind, like those freaky people, like I do. I can tell you where
Oh,
I
nice.
was on a certain day in a year. Yeah, it's
Oh,
just,
nice.
yeah, yeah. Now, that's pretty crazy. Where did you guys tour? What kind of venues were you playing? Were you over in the UK, or were you in North America?
Both. So
Wow.
we did Europe, and we did North America. In the UK, we were playing bigger venues, bigger theaters. Here, it was like, what would be a venue? Well, we played in Toronto a bunch. I'm trying to remember, but it would be like 1,000 to 1,500 seaters here in the States,
Yep.
and maybe 5,000 or in the UK, something like that, or in Europe,
Wow.
something like that, maybe a little more.
And she had a good. She's from Scotland, is she?
Originally from Scotland, yeah.
Is she
And
living there, or is she living in London, or in North America now?
she has been living in both London and LA. So
Oh, okay.
both spots. I did something with her not too long ago, something that she was producing at her
Wow.
house, and that was fun.
I bet.
Yeah, and but yeah, she was living in London and Los Angeles.
Terrific voice. I remember first hearing, Black Horse and Cherry Tree on the radio and going, "Who is this?" And like,
Yeah,
she's instantly recognizable, instantly sounds amazing. I wanted to know more about, what, and then what one of the other ones, the top, one of the hits. But I'm like, man, that voice was Suddenly I See.
Yes.
Man, oh man, what great voice, man. And she
Yeah.
really lovely to work with, and you continue to work with her.
100%. It was, yeah, it was a joy, refreshing. The band was great.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it was an all U.S. band, then it was an all London band, except for me, and then it
Wow.
was, and then I've done some things, like I said, some things that she's producing herself, producing other artists, kind of thing.
Wow, wonderful.
And yeah, man, I can't say enough about KT. She's super sweet, man. Super sweet, and yeah, super talented, super sweet, and that voice, man, is it's a joy to play behind.
Yeah, it'd be amazing hearing that in your in-ears, man. I've had some gigs when the singers are just stellar, and I played with Megan Patrick, a country artist who's been in Nashville for a number of years, and I did 4 shows with her back in 2017. And to hear that voice come in these in-ears that I'd heard on the CD or all over the radio was like as good live, as the recording. Because sometimes that's not the case when you hear them on a record and then you hear them in person. Sometimes it's not great, but man, I could imagine hearing KT, just hearing that voice, just that richness and that expression, and you have no idea that she's from Scotland when you're hearing, or the UK when you're hearing her sing. The accent,
Right.
But us Canadian singers, we like to sing with a bit of a British accent, I don't know what that's all about. We do. Suddenly You See.
All right, now I know this. That's good. I like
that.
it.
Can we talk about the Kooks? Who is this group, and what is that all about?
The Kooks, well, the same producer. I ended up doing playing a little bit on their record. Their drummer, who was with them from the beginning, had some neurological stuff going on with his arm. Where he couldn't play, it was a drag, and because he's a huge part of the band. And so Tony Hoffer, who's the producer, called me and said, basically said, I don't know what's going to happen with Paul. Are you around if something comes up? And basically Paul did the whole thing, and I just did a little things here and there. But when Paul couldn't do the live stuff, they asked me, it was kind of last minute actually, so they were in a bit of a bind, and I was thankful for, in a way that they were in a bind, because they called me and basically we were off and running, and that was for a while. That was for a while. And
where did you play? What kind of venues were you playing, and where did you go?
So that was pretty much everywhere. All through Europe, US, South America, Russia.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
They have and still have it's incredible, quite a following. And we did those venues, those theaters, and by the way, those are my favorite places to play, like the 1,000, 1,500 theater. But like we would do like 3 nights at a place with the Kooks. They have a really loyal fan base. It's really great.
That's incredible. Now, do you have any favorite places to play, as far as parts of the world? Where do you find that when you find that you're going to be there, you go, yes?
Oh, that's a good question. I really love South America.
Yeah.
I think I'm the kind of person that can see myself settling just about anywhere. Like I find a cool thing about each spot that you go, right? I don't know if I have a favorite. Because right away I thought, well, I love Spain. Barcelona is great, or I don't. There's not one that is like, okay, it's this one. I definitely that is the thing. So
Awesome.
yeah, there's a lot of places for a lot of different reasons, but
right. I find that every new place I go to, if I usually go, man, I take it here. I could live here. They're usually warmer places.
Well, I was just gonna say, I've 100% of the time I have 100% positivity in my mind about Toronto. Every single show I've ever done in Toronto is just been a joy, and has a little bit of a memory, attached to it or whatever,
Sure.
So,
Man, I hope you come to Toronto soon. I'd love to meet you and see you do your thing in our city. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. I wanted to ask you, when did you become an official Gretsch drum artist? What does it mean to you? And how did it come about that you became a Gretsch artist?
How did it? So, I knew Andrew Shreve, who is over at Gretsch, and when the KT thing was starting, so I knew that we were going to be doing both London or over UK and Europe and the States, and I wanted to get something for both spots, and so I called Andrew, and then he was like, "Yeah, let's do a thing. You become an artist," and I was very appreciative. Cool. And KT had to run a date, so it made sense for Gretsch, because we did some shows, TV appearances and things like that where they would be busy. Yeah, it made sense for them too, and so that's sort of how. So I got a kit for overseas and a kit for US, so it was really fantastic.
Beautiful. What are the let's do a little rundown of your drum rigs.
The Gretsch stuff is I got the 24 kick for that tour, and that's the one I have now. So I need to get my next thing is a 20. So I got to get the 20, but I got the 14, and I also like the traditional sizes. I got the 14 by 22, 14 by 24.
Wow.
And man, I'm terrible with this, but I think it's 8 by 12, 9 by 13, which I only use one rack usually on the KT tour, and then 16 by 16. And then I was using this 6.5 by 14 bell brass snare.
Oh, okay. There's an unboxing video that I watched of yours, and you got that. You were in the middle of a session, or you were doing something, and you unboxed those, and I saw the bell brass. Man.
Yeah. It's I have it up right now in the kit. Right now, the bell brass, and it's a wonderful drum. Yeah.
Now I wanted to ask you: is that I know it's got a lot of volume. I have a USA Custom bronze drum, a 6.5. Could I use that bell brass drum on a gig that wouldn't necessarily be the loudest?
Yeah, I don't think of it like that, actually. Weirdly, I think it can go that way. Maybe that's the thing about it. It can go a lot of different ways, and its tuning is like its weight. It's a heavy drum.
Right.
It can go any way, but I almost always play it quiet and play it deep and not loud. Weirdly. Yeah. I mean, we played out with KT. I mean, it was a hitting gig kind of thing, so that worked. But I find that it's really cool with lower tuning and
So versatile.
and played like Murray Spivak would play, quiet.
Interesting. I was chatting with Sean Horton last year on the show, and that's Sean's one of his favorite snare drums, and he had it on a back line, and he was saying, "I'm going to get one of these," and he sure enough did get one, and says it's just a dynamite snare drum in it, and that might be something to get next year.
I wonder if it'll become legendary in the pantheon, or maybe it already has in the pantheon of the Black Beauties or the Superphonics. The one everybody's got to have this, and you got to have the Gretsch bell brass or whatever, But that's for me, for sure, man. It would be,
beautiful.
I think
USA Customs, is that the series of drums you're playing? Have you had experience with any of the other series?
I've played the Brooklyn a little bit, so I think what I'll probably get next is the Brooklyn with the 20-inch bass drum. The 20-inch bass drum. That's what my first kit was. So I think I'm going back to that.
Yeah, I love a 20.
Yes, but but the Brooklyn kit sounds amazing to me.
They do. Yeah. Have you played the Broadcasters yet?
I haven't played them yet.
Me neither.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're. Man, I would love to, and of course have had several guests that own the Broadcasters and say, "Oh man, you got to play a Broadcaster kit." So I need to start making a lot more money next year. Which is gigs are coming in, gigs are rolling in for next year, which is great. So perhaps, well, we'll see. I'm excited to be getting back and playing, and that's so. You have what color are your USAs?
So they're black marine pearl.
That's right.
And my personal story that's not really important, but important to me, was that they were the closest to that original kit that I got when I was 6. That it reminded me. It reminded me. No, not the Mickey Mouse.
Not the Mickey Mouse. Okay.
Those were red
the
sparkle.
Apollo.
The Mercury.
The Mercury. Sorry, Apollo was your.
That's all right.
I'll be all right. Wow.
They were the closest to that color, man, and it reminded me of that. So I was like, I got to get those, man, because it reminds me of my first drum kit.
That's fabulous. Wow. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about the other side of your musical career, is that you write and compose and have done things for television, correct?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
I love songs. So I really respect great songwriters. So I tread lightly when I talk about being a songwriter, but I love writing, and I do write. And I was signed to Warner Chappell as a writer.
Wow.
For a while. And any songs that were on TV were like written for artists, and they ended up going on TV. And then I've done commercial writing, stuff that's ended up in ads for this.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. What kind of music? What do you write on? Is it guitar, keyboards? What do you write on? And what kind of genre is this?
I'm a better guitar player, but I as far as playing, but I prefer writing on keyboard. The problem is if I'm writing with somebody, I'm not going to sit at a keyboard because I suck. So if I'm with a computer, I can play keyboards. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep.
So I prefer writing on piano. And what was your other question?
Well, what kind of music would it be? What kind of songs would they be? Would they be short, like 30-second, 45-second, minute songs, or were they full tunes?
Well, the songwriting that I did for artists were like regular pop songs.
Okay.
And then the commercials are maybe a minute, 30 seconds, a minute,
Okay.
2 minutes or whatever. And
Yep.
then if I'm doing a personal thing, it could be, 8 minutes or 10 minutes, or, it could meander a bit or whatever, whatever feels right. I love a good pop song.
Mhm.
And yeah. So
That's
I would
terrific.
normally stay in the 3-minute range, somewhere in
Mhm.
there, 3,
Mhm.
4.
Did you always have songs come to you? Were you always, a songwriter, or did that happen as you got a little older?
Well, I think of, like when you said songs come to you, I think of like Paul McCartney waking up with Yesterday in his head, you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know if I've ever had that, but I think part of the deal when I was growing up was my mom loving the Beatles, or the my dad loving Bob Skaggs, or um, Aretha Franklin. And you get a sense of really good songwriters. And I love songs. And I know what. So for me, although I did write when I was in Baltimore, especially with some friends, and wrote my own stuff. When I was in LA, finally, I had a studio and a group of guys that some actual legit songwriters would call us to play the demos.
Cool.
So I got to be around them and see what they were doing. And sometimes writing a new section, and so I just started doing it, and then it picked up, and I like it. So I just kept doing it.
That's fantastic. And another way to, you have to have many irons in the fire. As a musician, you need to be resourceful. As you said at the very early part of our interview, with the pandemic, you've had to kind of flip. Thank goodness our government up here was very supportive to the artists, and our support just literally ended a couple of weeks ago. So it had lasted from April of last year till October of this
Wow.
year. So we're super grateful for that.
Amazing.
But it's always good. And ever since I've played music exclusively, which is the last 20 years, I've always taught and I've always played. And now perhaps this could parlay into something else. So, but that's great that I have songs and things and little melodies come to my head. Perhaps I should write this stuff down.
Oh man, yeah, for sure.
I do wake up with Yesterday and with songs, with little riffs in my head. I really do.
Easier than ever, man. But voice recorder on iPhone or whatever phone you have, or
Yeah, they're on there, and I'm like, really? That's just Disco Inferno. What is wrong with me?
Oh man, that would be cool. I would love to have that in my head.
Oh, no kidding. That is phenomenal. So what lies ahead for you, Denny Weston Jr.? Thank you so much. What lies ahead for you for the rest of this year and into next year?
Immediately, I have so I'm actually doing a thing in town here in the high desert area with two buddies of mine. We're calling it. Well, we don't have a name for it yet, but it's like what did Josh, the guitar player, said it was greasy tumbleweed.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's like New Orleans desert.
Oh,
New Orleans in the desert kind of thing.
wow.
So I'm enjoying that a lot. And those players, it's a guitar player and a bass player that I love playing with. So that's been a joy. And my own stuff, which I like doing, which is a hybrid thing, a hybrid electronic acoustic
Cool.
thing. So I'm trying to button up some material to present it as a one thing, one project. And
Interesting.
yeah,
Man, I wish you all the best with that. That's phenomenal.
thanks, man.
Please let me know when you are in Toronto or coming, if you have any inkling, or Yeah, that man, it'd be fun to meet you in person. I've said this to many guests, but now that things are opening, would absolutely, it'd be fun, man.
Yeah, likewise. I would
And
love
so, man, thank you so much for spending the time today. An hour
that.
and
Yeah,
15 has just flown by. And one
bananas.
last comment here was, what Gretsch drums is Denny playing, USA or the Brooklyn? And we did mention this maybe about 10 minutes ago. That is the USA custom drums, as well as that beautiful bell brass snare drum that I'm going to be thinking about all night now.
Highly recommend it.
Highly recommend it. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Denny. I appreciate your time.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. It's a joy. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Everyone, take care. We will see you next time for episode 66 on the Gretsch Afternoon Drum Break. And check out the brand new website, www.thegretchafternooндrumbreak.com. Has all the past interviews linked to the Gretsch artists' profiles on the Gretsch Drums page. So we will see you all soon. Bye now.
Peace.